Hola, hajimemashite, ni hao, salve. Cultural diversity brings many welcome challenging elements to instruction and structure of the education system in the United States. One welcome challenge of cultural diversity for educators in the general education classroom is communicating with students whose native language is not English. A knowledgeable teacher who has one or more English language learners in the classroom is aware of the uplifting elements and welcome challenges that English language learners bring to the classroom. With that said, I, Rebecca Lemons, am delighted to be discussing the various components of English language learners in the classroom.
All right, who are your English language learners? The best definition of an English language learner and diagnosis of an English language learner in your classroom is the study of English by a non-native speaker in your English-speaking environment. The following is a list of other names for English language learners. English as a second language, English as a foreign language, English for speakers of other languages, and English as an additional language. Common misconceptions. A common mistake teachers inadvertently make is looking at English language learners as a monolithic group of normative speakers of English and fail to see that even in groups that share the same first language, there is a huge amount of diversity. By incorporating cultures that are represented into classroom instruction and remembering English language learners are foremost individuals, allows all students to develop a sense of self-value and respect for one another, which are essential components of learning. Another common misconception of English language learners is that they are labeled as low-level learners because they are unable to respond cognitively to the demands of education in the English-speaking environment. On the contrary, English language learners are more than cognitively capable of learning and performing at grade level and should be held to grade level standards. So with this said, there are common characteristics when learning English as a second language. To help with understanding the process of learning English as a second language, I have chosen to briefly discuss 5 stages of second language acquisition. The 5 stages of second language acquisition that I have chosen to discuss are Stage 1, silent, receptive, reproductive, Stage 2, early production, Stage 3, speech emergence, Stage 4, intermediate fluency, and Stage 5, advanced fluency. Starting with the lowest level of English proficiency is the silent, receptive, pre-productive stage. In this stage, an English language learner will most likely communicate with one-word answers and non-verbally. It is important to be patient and flexible in lesson planning because unlike native speakers of the language, second language speakers may need to intentionally focus on details of talk, and because of speech speed and limitations of memory, comprehension can be difficult for English language learners. In the second stage of early production, an English language learner student will communicate verbally using short phrases and develop greater ability to extract meaning from utterances directed to them. In the third stage, speech emergence, English language learners will communicate with simple sentences, ask simple conversational questions that may or may not be grammatically correct, and participate in short conversations. In the fourth stage, intermediate fluency, English language learners are using more complex sentences when speaking and writing, begin to think in English instead of translating from their native language, and can express opinions and share original thoughts, and have the ability to formulate questions to clarify academic tasks. The fifth stage, advanced fluency. The English language learner begins to engage in non-cued conversations and produces oral and written narratives. Students at this stage are near native in their ability to perform in the second language, although there may be some gaps, especially when it comes to idiomatic uses of the language. As a teacher, it may be easy to get frustrated with an English language learner who demonstrates proficiency in English, but still makes mistakes in oral and written language. Therefore, it is important to remain patient, for the English language can be confusing and complicated at times, considering gaps such as idioms, homophones, homographs, sarcasm, and so forth. So overall, having a basic understanding of second language acquisition stages will assist and foster teachers in becoming more confident at differentiating instruction to promote linguistic and academic achievements. It's important to know English language learners' education background. By having access to an English language learner's academic background will be helpful with developing instruction. Prior knowledge of a given subject in an English language learner's native language will help the English language learner comprehend and support an understanding of a new concept being taught. By allowing an English language learner to first learn a concept in their native language and then build on a new learned concept in English will help alleviate frustration for both student and teacher. Also, through knowing the background academic information will foster applications of differentiated instruction, and in turn build a safer classroom environment that ensures that all students are valued as individuals and as a whole. In addition to knowing an English language learner's education background, it is equally important to be culturally responsive to the English language learners in the classroom. Some ways to be culturally responsive, but are not limited to, are through home visits, knowing various cultural norms, and celebrating the uniquenesses that are represented within the classroom. The main purpose of home visits is to get to know students and their parents or guardians outside the classroom. By going the extra mile to make home visits will be helpful in fostering relationships with students as well as parents. Home visits, if possible, are especially important for English language learners, for the observations made in the home environment will assist a teacher in developing differentiated instruction in the classroom. Being aware of cultural norms can prevent misunderstandings that usually lead to labeling these cultural differences as behavioral problems. For example, in the Japanese culture, girls will cover their mouths and giggle if they are embarrassed. If a teacher calls upon the student to answer a question in class, and this is the common response, the teacher is most likely going to misinterpret this response as a sign of disrespect or a way of avoiding the answer. Another example of cultural differences that I found interesting is the practice of copying someone else's work. In certain cultures, by copying another person's work is a way of demonstrating respect for authority, as well as developing appropriate written language. Unfortunately, in the U.S., copying someone else's work is frowned upon and is called plagiarism. So if students plagiarize, there can be severe sanctions such as failures or dismissal from school. Therefore, it is important for teachers to be aware of these various cultural norms to avoid embarrassment for both teacher and student. Teachers should be continually aware of the diverse cultural backgrounds within the classroom and celebrate the cultural uniquenesses that are represented within the classroom. Teachers should encourage English language learners to share their unique cultural backgrounds with the whole class, such as sharing and teaching their favorite recipe from their native cuisines, writing presenting a paper on a famous historical figure from their native land, teach and celebrate a holiday that is specific to their native land, and so forth. Nurturing cultural backgrounds of English language learners warmly invites English language learners to be a valued part of the classroom community, as well as encouraging practice and development in written and oral English. Teaching practices. There are many teaching practices for encouraging successful learning among English language learners. Some of these teaching practices are, but are not limited to, providing a safe way out, having routines, and learning through songs and hand gestures. A safe way out. Providing a safe way out may consist of working alone versus working in a group, or reading aloud as a whole group chorally versus round robin style, or creating a signal with an English language learner who may not be comfortable answering a question on the spot in front of the whole class, giving plenty of time to prepare an answer. Whatever the alternative learning opportunity may be, it is important to remember, alternative learning opportunities are just that. They are not to be punitive, but should rather present a different work setting that is more likely to contribute to learning successes. Routines. Following the same routines, using familiar procedures, and listing the agenda for the day on the board will provide English language learners with external predictability and reduce the anxiety factor, which in turn will foster learning. Songs and hand gestures. Songs and hand gestures can help in many ways. Songs can help with pronunciation, rhyming words, and memory. Something as simple as head, shoulders, knees, and toes can help with learning the English words that go with the body parts. Songs with hand gestures can provide the connection between the written words and the spoken words. Accommodations and modified materials consists of word cards, word wall, communication journals, use of pictures with text, print or pictured schedule, low-tech aids, and translating devices. Word cards. Having English language learners write a word in their native language on one side of an index card and the English translation on the other side will help with writing English words as well as practicing them orally. Word cards can also be used as a reference source in the earlier stages of second language acquisition. Word wall. A word wall can be beneficial for English language learners and English-speaking learners in the classroom. A word wall can contain frequently used words, frequently misspelled words, and/or spelling words. Communication journals. A communication journal can be a daily journal where the teacher poses a question for a student to answer and then for the teacher to respond back as a form of a written conversation. Communication journals can also be done between peers. Communication journals are a great learning tool for fostering second language acquisition through the forms of writing, grammar, and sentence structures. Use of pictures with text. A picture can help remove frustration of comprehension when reading. Take the following sentence for example. The crane was stuck in the mud for 2 days. Which crane did you picture stuck in the mud? As you can see, the use of pictures will help with connecting the abstract meaning of a written word with the concrete meaning of a word. Print or pictured schedules. By having a print or picture schedule will help with connecting the abstract meaning of a written word with the concrete meaning of a word. Therefore, these have the same concept as pictures with text. By having a schedule posted similar to the one shown, will help English language learners with transitions throughout the school day. Low-tech aids. Low-tech aids such as a color coding system is an effective technique for the whole class. Using a color coding system for different subjects will be helpful for English language learners. If the teacher takes the time to learn the colors of the languages represented in the classroom, as well as a few key words, and make them a part of their vocabulary, it will help English language learners transition from subject to subject. For example, please take out your red rojo folder, la carpeta, por favor. Also, for teachers to speak in English language learners' native language provides value to their first language and in turn creates a respect factor between the student and teacher. Translating devices. A translating device can be costly, but they are well worth the money to assist English language learners inside and outside the classroom. English language learners can benefit from these devices. Through translating devices can lower frustration and time consumption when trying to think of the English word that matches the native word, as well as help with pronunciation of the English language. In conclusion, it is important for teachers to understand how students differ in their approaches to learning and the barriers that impede learning and can adapt instruction to meet the various needs of students, including those with disabilities, exceptionalities, and diverse backgrounds. English language learners in the general education classroom will present many challenges for a teacher to teach, but overall challenges are well worth the effort to provide a safe and inviting learning environment for all students in the classroom.